German Shepherd was crying fro. Help covered in mud by the river. The baby's next move. Brought everyone to tears. What happened next will shock you beyond belief. Before we begin, if you're watching from anywhere around the world, drop a comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. The story you're about to listen to will change how you see the bond between humans and animals forever. Gray clouds hung low over the muddy riverbank that morning, thick and heavy like a blanket ready to burst. The air smelled of wet earth and something else, something that made your skin crawl. Rain had been pounding the valley for 3 days straight, turning the usually gentle Clearwater River into a monster that devoured everything in its path. Trees that had stood for decades now lay twisted and broken along the banks, their roots clawing at the sky like desperate fingers. Emma pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders as she walked along the flooded path, her boots squelching in the soft ground with every step. The morning mist clung to the water like ghostly fingers, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. She had come here looking for peace, trying to escape the chaos that had become her life since the divorce. Single motherhood wasn't something she had planned, but here she was, doing her best to raise her 5-year-old son, while juggling 2 part-time jobs and a mountain of bills. "Mama, look," whispered little Kai, tugging at her hand with the persistence only a child could muster. His small fingers were cold and damp from the morning air, but his grip was firm and urgent. There was something in his voice that made Emma stop walking immediately. Kai rarely spoke above a whisper, and when he did, it usually meant something important was happening in his quiet little world. Emma followed her son's pointing finger toward a bend in the river, where tall reeds swayed like dancers in the morning breeze. At first, she saw nothing but mud and debris. Broken branches, plastic bottles, and chunks of foam floated past in the rushing water. But then she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold and her heart skip a beat. A whimper, thin and broken, cutting through the roar of the rushing water like a knife through silk. "Did you hear that?" Emma whispered, crouching down to Kai's level. Her son nodded, his dark eyes wide with concern. He had always been sensitive to the pain of others, even animals he had never met. It was one of the things that made him special, though Emma worried it would make his life harder as he grew up. The sound came again, weaker this time, like whoever was making it was running out of strength. Emma's pulse quickened as she realized what she was hearing. Somewhere in that tangle of reeds and mud, something was dying. "Stay close to me," Emma told Kai, taking his hand as they carefully made their way down the slippery bank. The ground was treacherous, covered in a layer of slick mud that seemed determined to send them tumbling into the raging water below. Each step had to be planned carefully, tested before committing their full weight. As they got closer to the sound, Emma's heart began to race. Through the morning mist and tangled vegetation, she could make out a shape that didn't belong, something large and dark, half buried in the silt and debris that the flood had left behind. "Oh my God," Emma breathed, her hand flying to cover her mouth. It was a German Shepherd, but barely recognizable as the proud, strong breed she knew them to be. The dog was plastered in mud from head to shoulder, his usually magnificent coat now a mess of brown sludge that made it hard to tell where the animal ended and the riverbank began. One of his front paws was bent at an angle that made Emma's stomach lurch, clearly broken or badly sprained. But it was his eyes that broke her heart, glazed and unfocused, staring at nothing as if he had already given up hope. The dog's breathing was shallow and labored, each exhale creating a small puff of mist in the cold morning air. He was shivering uncontrollably, his body trying desperately to generate warmth in the frigid conditions. Mud filled his nostrils, making every breath a struggle. How long had he been lying here? Hours? Days? "Mama, help him," Kai whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. Tears were already forming in his eyes as he looked at the suffering animal. Without waiting for permission, he slipped his small hand free from Emma's grip and took a step toward the dog. "Kai, no!" Emma grabbed for him, but it was too late. Her son was already kneeling in the mud beside the German Shepherd, his small hand hovering just inches above the dog's matted fur. But something incredible happened. The moment Kai's presence registered, the dog's glazed eyes suddenly focused. His head lifted slightly, just enough to look at the little boy who had appeared like an angel in his darkest moment. The whimpering stopped, replaced by something that sounded almost like recognition. Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. In all her years, she had never seen anything quite like it. The connection between her son and this dying animal was immediate and profound, as if they were speaking a language only they could understand. "It's okay," Kai whispered to the dog, his voice barely audible over the sound of rushing water. "We're here now." That's when Emma noticed something that made her blood turn to ice. The water level was rising. Fast. What had been a manageable distance from the riverbank when they first spotted the dog was now less than 2 feet away. The recent rains had swollen the river beyond its normal capacity, and the current was eating away at the soft bank with every passing minute. In less than 10 minutes, maybe 5, the rushing water would reach the dog's muzzle. He was too weak to lift his head any higher, too injured to drag himself to safety. If they didn't act now, Emma and Kai would watch this beautiful animal drown right in front of them. "We have to get him out of here," Emma said, her voice tight with urgency. She pulled out her phone, hoping against hope that she might have enough signal to call for help. The screen showed no bars, not even one. The morning mist and the river valley's geography had created a dead zone for cell reception. Looking around desperately, Emma realized they were completely on their own. The nearest road was at least half a mile away through dense brush and muddy terrain. Even if she ran as fast as she could, by the time she brought help back, it would be too late. The dog would be gone, swept away by the merciless current. Her small tote bag contained nothing useful for a rescue operation. Just some snacks for their morning walk, a light scarf she had thrown in at the last minute, and an old picnic blanket that had seen better days. Not exactly emergency rescue equipment. "Mama, we have to help him now," Kai said, his voice stronger than she had heard it in months. There was something in his tone that reminded Emma of her own father, a man who never walked away from someone in need, no matter how impossible the situation seemed. As if responding to the urgency in their voices, another section of the riverbank suddenly gave way with a wet, sucking sound. A chunk of earth the size of a car tire broke off and tumbled into the rushing water, taking several small trees with it. The German Shepherd's resting place was now less than 18 inches from the water's edge. Emma felt panic rising in her chest. One wrong step on this unstable ground, and all 3 of them could end up in the river. The current was strong enough to carry away full-grown trees. A woman, a child, and an injured dog wouldn't stand a chance. But as she looked at her son, kneeling fearlessly beside the suffering animal, Emma realized she couldn't live with herself if they walked away. Some moments define who you really are, and this was one of them. "Okay," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're going to get him out. But you have to do exactly what I say, when I say it. Promise me." Kai nodded solemnly, his small hand now resting gently on the dog's muddy head. "I promise, Mama." The German Shepherd's eyes followed their conversation, alert despite his weakened condition. It was as if he understood that his life now depended on these 2 strangers who had appeared in his moment of greatest need. Emma quickly assessed their limited resources. The scarf could serve as a makeshift rope if she knotted it properly. The picnic blanket, though old and worn, might work as a sled to help them drag the dog up the slippery bank. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. Working with desperate efficiency, Emma tied one end of the scarf around a sturdy-looking branch that jutted out from the bank above them. She tested it with her full weight, praying it would hold. The branch bent but didn't break. It would have to do. "Here's what we're going to do," she explained to Kai, her voice calm despite the chaos of her thoughts. "We're going to dig around him very carefully to free his legs, then slide the blanket underneath him. You're going to hold the corners of the blanket while I guide him up the bank." As they began to work, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were fighting against time itself. Every minute that passed brought the water closer, and the dog seemed to be growing weaker. His breathing had become even more shallow, and his eyes were starting to lose their focus again. But Kai never wavered. With his small hands, he began scooping mud away from the dog's body, working with a determination that surprised his mother. He whispered constantly to the animal, a steady stream of reassuring words that seemed to keep the German Shepherd alert and fighting. "That's it," Kai murmured, his voice taking on an almost musical quality. "We're getting you out. Just hold on a little longer." The dog's response was immediate and heartbreaking. His tail, barely visible under the mud, gave the faintest wag. It was such a small gesture, but it carried the weight of pure gratitude and trust. That's when Emma heard it, a sound that made her heart nearly stop. A deep rumbling from upriver, getting louder by the second. She looked up to see a wall of muddy water rushing toward them, probably triggered by a beaver dam giving way somewhere upstream. They had less than 2 minutes before the flash flood reached them. Maybe less. "Kai, we have to move now!" Emma shouted, abandoning any pretense of calm. She grabbed the corners of the blanket and began pulling with all her strength, trying to slide the German Shepherd up the treacherous slope. The dog let out a sharp cry of pain as they lifted him, his broken leg dragging uselessly. But instead of struggling against them, he seemed to understand what was happening and tried to help as much as his weakened body would allow. Kai planted his feet in the mud and pulled alongside his mother, his face red with effort, but his grip never wavering on the blanket. "Come on," he panted, speaking now to both the dog and himself. "We can do this." The sound of rushing water was getting louder, and Emma could feel spray on her face as the approaching flood threw droplets into the air. They were so close to the top of the bank, but every step was a battle against gravity and the slick, unstable ground. Just when Emma thought they might actually make it, disaster struck. The old picnic blanket, stressed beyond its limits, began to tear along one edge. The ripping sound was like a gunshot in the morning air, and suddenly half of their makeshift sled was gone. The German Shepherd began to slide backward toward the rising water, his eyes wide with what looked almost like understanding. He knew what was about to happen, and in that moment, Emma saw something in his gaze that would haunt her forever. Not fear, but gratitude. Even facing death, he was thankful that someone had tried. "No!" Kai shouted, diving forward to grab the dog around the neck with his small arms. His action was instinctive and completely fearless, the kind of split-second decision that adults spend too much time thinking about. Emma felt a surge of strength she didn't know she possessed. Grabbing what remained of the blanket and wrapping it around her wrists, she pulled with everything she had. Her muscles screamed in protest. Her feet slipped and slid in the mud, but somehow, impossibly, they kept moving upward. The flash flood hit the exact spot where they had found the dog just as Emma and Kai dragged him over the edge of the bank to safety. The water roared past below them, carrying away trees, debris, and everything else in its path. If they had been even 30 seconds later, all three of them would have been swept away. For a long moment, nobody moved. Emma lay on her back in the mud, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. Kai was curled up next to the German Shepherd, his small hand resting protectively on the dog's head. The animal was conscious but clearly in bad shape. They had won the battle against the river, but the war for his life was far from over. "We did it," Kai whispered, his voice filled with wonder and exhaustion. "We saved him!" Emma rolled over to look at her son and the dog he had refused to abandon. The German Shepherd's breathing was still shallow, but his eyes were alert and focused on the little boy who had become his guardian angel. There was intelligence in that gaze, and something else, a bond that had formed in the crucible of shared danger. "Yes, we did," Emma replied, though she knew their real challenges were just beginning. They had saved the dog from drowning, but he clearly needed immediate medical attention. His injuries were serious, and hypothermia was setting in fast. The nearest veterinary clinic was across town, and morning traffic would make the drive feel like an eternity. But as Emma looked at her son, still whispering words of comfort to their muddy new friend, she felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time: hope. Whatever happened next, they had proven something important to themselves. When it mattered most, when another life hung in the balance, they hadn't walked away. The German Shepherd seemed to sense the change in their situation. Safe now from the immediate danger of the flood, he allowed his eyes to close briefly, though his breathing remained labored. Mud still caked his fur and filled his nostrils, making every breath an effort. But he was alive, and that was more than anyone could have hoped for just minutes earlier. Emma gently touched the dog's side, feeling the rapid flutter of his heartbeat under her palm. His body was cold, too cold, and she realized that time was still their enemy. Hypothermia could be just as deadly as drowning, and they were still far from any real help. "Come on," she said to Kai, struggling to her feet in the slick mud. "We need to get him warm and find a doctor." As they prepared to move the injured animal again, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this morning had changed everything. Her quiet, sensitive son had shown courage that surprised even her, and together they had accomplished something that seemed impossible just an hour earlier. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. As Emma lifted the German Shepherd as gently as she could, preparing to carry him to their car, Kai did something that made her heart skip a beat. He spoke, not in his usual whisper, but in a clear, strong voice that rang out across the muddy riverbank. "Stay with us," he told the dog, his words carrying a confidence that Emma had never heard from her son before. "We're going to take care of you." The German Shepherd's response was immediate. His eyes opened wide, focusing intently on Kai's face, and his tail gave the faintest wag. It was as if those simple words had given him a reason to keep fighting, a promise to hold on to when everything else felt uncertain. Emma felt tears spring to her eyes, not just from relief, but from pride. Her little boy, who usually hid behind her legs when strangers spoke to him, had found his voice in the most important moment of his young life. The walk to their car felt like the longest journey of Emma's life, but they made it without any more disasters. The German Shepherd remained conscious throughout the careful transfer, his eyes never leaving Kai's face. There was something almost mystical about the connection between them, as if the near-death experience had forged a bond that went deeper than anything Emma had ever witnessed. Emma's small hatchback wasn't designed for transporting injured animals, but it would have to do. She folded down the back seats and spread out the torn blanket, creating as comfortable a space as possible for their muddy passenger. The dog was heavier than she had expected, his waterlogged fur adding extra weight to his already substantial frame. But with Kai's help, they managed to get him settled in the back of the car. The moment the German Shepherd was safely inside, Emma cranked the heat up as high as it would go. Warm air began flowing through the vents, slowly starting to combat the dangerous chill that had settled into the dog's body. His shivering was becoming more violent now, his body's desperate attempt to generate warmth in the face of hypothermia. "He's so cold, Mama," Kai whispered, crawling into the back seat beside the injured animal. Without hesitation, he pressed his small body against the dog's side, sharing what little warmth he had. The gesture was so innocent and pure that Emma felt her throat tighten with emotion. "You're going to be okay," Kai murmured, his hands stroking the matted fur with gentle, repetitive motions. "We're taking you to get help." As Emma started the engine and began the tense drive across town, she couldn't stop glancing in the rearview mirror. The sight that greeted her each time was both heartbreaking and beautiful. Her son, covered in mud from head to toe, cradling a dying animal with the tenderness of someone twice his age. The German Shepherd's breathing remained shallow and labored, each exhale fogging the car windows despite the heat pouring from the vents. His eyes would flutter closed for long moments, only to snap open again as if he was fighting to stay conscious. Emma pressed harder on the accelerator, knowing that every minute could make the difference between life and death. Morning traffic was building rapidly as commuters headed to work, turning what should have been a 15-minute drive into an agonizing crawl through downtown streets. Emma found herself trapped behind a line of cars, at a red light that seemed to last forever, her knuckles white as she gripped the steering wheel. Come on," she muttered under her breath, watching the light with laser focus. Behind her, she could hear Kai continuing his quiet conversation with the dog, his voice taking on an almost hypnotic quality. "My name is Kai," he was saying softly. "I'm 5 years old. My mama says I'm good at helping people feel better. Are you feeling a little better now?" The dog's response made Emma's heart skip a beat. Somehow, despite his critical condition, he managed to lift his head just enough to look directly at Kai. His tail, barely visible under all the mud, gave the faintest wag. It was such a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about the connection forming between them. That's when something truly extraordinary happened. Kai began to hum, a soft, melodic tune that Emma had never heard before. It seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him, as natural as breathing. The melody was simple, but hauntingly beautiful, rising and falling like a gentle lullaby. The effect on the German Shepherd was immediate and profound. His breathing, which had been quick and shallow, began to slow and deepen. The tension in his body seemed to ease, and his eyes remained fixed on Kai's face with an expression that looked almost like gratitude. "Where did you learn that song?" Emma asked, fascinated by this new side of her usually quiet son. I didn't learn it, Kai replied without looking up from the dog. It just came to me. I think he likes it. Emma felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold morning air. There was something happening here that she didn't fully understand, something that went beyond the normal bond between humans and animals. It was as if her son had tapped into some primal form of communication that transcended words. The light finally turned green, and Emma pressed forward through the congested streets. Every few blocks, she would glance back to check on their passenger, and each time she was amazed by what she saw. The dog's condition hadn't improved significantly. He was still clearly in distress, but there was a stability to him now that hadn't been there before. Kai's presence seemed to be acting as an anchor, keeping the animal tethered to consciousness when his body wanted to give up. As they navigated through the city, Emma's mind raced with questions. Where had this dog come from? How had he ended up trapped in the mud by the river? The area where they found him wasn't exactly wilderness. It was on the outskirts of town, near some light industrial development. German Shepherds were valuable dogs. Someone had to be missing him. But there were other questions that troubled her more. The dog's condition suggested he had been in the elements for more than just a few hours. His emaciated frame spoke of days, maybe even weeks, without proper food. And there was something about his behavior that seemed almost trained, as if he was accustomed to following commands and working with people. "Mama, he's trying to tell me something," Kai said suddenly, his voice filled with excitement. "He keeps looking at his collar." Emma glanced in the mirror and saw that Kai was right. Despite his weakened state, the German Shepherd was making a deliberate effort to direct attention to his neck. The collar was so caked with mud that Emma hadn't paid much attention to it during the rescue, but now she wondered if it might hold some clues about the dog's identity. "We'll look at it when we get to the vet," Emma promised, taking a sharp turn onto the street that housed Riverside Animal Clinic. "Right now, we just need to focus on getting him help." The clinic was a modest brick building with a small parking lot that was already half full despite the early hour. Emma pulled up to the front entrance and threw the car into park, her heart pounding with a mixture of relief and anxiety. They had made it, but the real battle for the dog's life was just beginning. "Stay with him while I get help," Emma told Kai, bursting through the front door of the clinic like a woman possessed. The waiting room was quiet except for the soft murmur of a morning news program playing on a wall-mounted television. Behind the reception desk sat a young woman with kind eyes and scrubs decorated with cartoon cats. Her name tag read Sarah, and she looked up with the practiced smile of someone who dealt with pet emergencies every day. "I need help," Emma said breathlessly, still covered in mud and probably looking like she had been through a war zone. "There's an injured German Shepherd in my car. We pulled him out of the river, and I think he's dying." Sarah's demeanor changed instantly from routine friendliness to professional urgency. She pressed a button on her desk and spoke into an intercom. "Dr. Martinez, we have an emergency in the parking lot. Possible hypothermia and trauma case." Within seconds, the clinic's back door burst open and Dr. Elena Martinez appeared, pushing a wheeled stretcher and moving with the swift efficiency of someone who had handled countless emergencies. She was a compact woman in her 40s, with graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and eyes that radiated competence and compassion. "Show me," she said simply, following Emma out to the car. The moment Dr. Martinez saw the German Shepherd, her expression grew serious. She made a quick visual assessment, her trained eye taking in details that Emma had missed. The dog's gum color, the quality of his breathing, the way he held his injured leg. All of it told a story of trauma and neglect that went beyond a simple accident. "How long has he been like this?" Dr. Martinez asked, carefully lifting the dog onto the stretcher with Sarah's help. "We don't know," Emma replied. "We found him about an hour ago, trapped in mud by the river. The water was rising and we barely got him out in time." "You did good, doctor," Martinez said, her voice carrying the weight of professional judgment. Another few minutes and it would have been too late. As they wheeled the German Shepherd into the clinic, Kai walked alongside the stretcher, his small hand maintaining contact with the dog's head. The animal's eyes tracked the boy's movement, never losing that connection they had formed by the river. "Can you tell me anything else about how you found him?" Dr. Martinez asked as they moved through the clinic's hallways toward the treatment room. "Any idea how he might have gotten injured?" Emma shook her head. There was no one else around. It looked like he had been there for a while, maybe overnight or longer. The riverbank was unstable. There was flooding and debris everywhere. They reached the treatment room, a bright, sterile space filled with medical equipment that Emma didn't recognize. Dr. Martinez and Sarah began their initial examination with practiced efficiency, checking vital signs and assessing the extent of the dog's injuries. Severe hypothermia, Dr. Martinez muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. Dehydration, possible internal injuries, and this leg is definitely fractured. We're going to need x-rays. That's when Kai did something that made everyone in the room stop what they were doing. As Dr. Martinez prepared to insert an IV line, he stepped forward and placed his small hand on the dog's chest. "Stay, Atlas," he said clearly, using a name that seemed to come from nowhere. "You need to stay with us now." The German Shepherd's reaction was instantaneous and shocking. His eyes, which had been glazed and unfocused, suddenly became alert and locked onto Kai's face. His breathing steadied, and the restless movement that had characterized his distress quieted completely. Dr. Martinez looked up at Kai with surprise. "Atlas? Is that his name?" Kai nodded with the confidence of someone who had never doubted the information. "That's what he told me. His name is Atlas." Emma felt her world shift slightly on its axis. Her son, who usually whispered when forced to speak to strangers, was talking confidently to adults he had just met. And somehow, impossibly, he seemed to know the dog's name. "Well, Atlas," Dr. Martinez said, her tone gentling as she addressed the dog directly. "Let's see what we can do to help you feel better." The examination that followed revealed the full extent of Atlas's condition. In addition to the broken leg and hypothermia, he was suffering from severe dehydration and what appeared to be several days without proper nutrition. There were also some puzzling aspects to his condition that Dr. Martinez found troubling. "These aren't the kinds of injuries you'd expect from an accidental fall or getting caught in flooding," she explained to Emma, while Kai remained focused on keeping Atlas calm. "The pattern suggests he might have been restrained or confined somewhere before ending up at the river." Emma felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. "What do you mean?" "See these marks around his neck, under the collar, and the way his coat has been matted in certain areas? This looks like prolonged confinement, possibly in poor conditions." As Dr. Martinez carefully cleaned away some of the mud from around Atlas's collar, something caught the overhead light. Something small and metallic, tucked beneath the thick leather band that encircled his neck. "Sarah, can you hand me those small forceps?" Dr. Martinez requested, her voice taking on a note of curiosity. "There's something attached to this collar that I want to get a better look at." Using the delicate instruments, she carefully extracted a small metal cylinder, no bigger than a large pill. It was made of what looked like surgical steel and had a tiny cap that could be twisted off. The object was unlike anything Emma had ever seen on a dog collar. "That's not a typical ID tag," Sarah observed, examining the cylinder over Dr. Martinez's shoulder. "What do you think it is?" Before Dr. Martinez could answer, the sound of footsteps in the hallway caught everyone's attention. Heavy, purposeful footsteps that seemed to be heading directly toward their treatment room. "Excuse me," a deep voice called from the doorway. "I'm looking for information about a German Shepherd that might have been brought in this morning." Emma turned to see a man in his 50s standing in the doorway, wearing a dark windbreaker and carrying himself with the kind of authority that suggested law enforcement or military background. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with steel gray hair and eyes that seemed to take in every detail of the room at once. "I'm Agent Harris with Animal Control Services," he continued, pulling out an official-looking badge. "I understand there was a rescue from the river area this morning involving a German Shepherd that may have escaped from a restricted facility." Dr. Martinez stepped protectively closer to the treatment table where Atlas lay. "This dog was found injured and abandoned. We're providing emergency medical care." "I appreciate that," Agent Harris said, his tone remaining professional but firm. "However, if this is the animal I'm looking for, he needs to be transferred to our facility immediately. There are potential health and safety concerns that go beyond normal veterinary care." Emma felt alarm bells going off in her head. Something about this man's story didn't feel right. His badge looked official enough, but his timing was too convenient. How had he known to come here? How had he known about the rescue at all? "What kind of health and safety concerns?" Dr. Martinez asked, her voice carrying a note of skepticism. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the details," Agent Harris replied. "But I can tell you that this animal may have been exposed to hazardous materials as part of an ongoing investigation. For everyone's safety, he needs to be quarantined at our specialized facility." As the adults talked, Emma noticed that Kai had moved closer to Atlas, his small body positioning itself between the dog and the stranger in the doorway. Atlas, despite his weakened condition, had raised his head and was watching Agent Harris with an expression that could only be described as wary. "Can you provide documentation for this transfer request?" Dr. Martinez asked, crossing her arms. "And I'll need to see identification that specifically authorizes you to remove animals from veterinary care." Agent Harris's expression tightened slightly, the first crack in his professional demeanor. "The paperwork is being processed. In the meantime, time is of the essence. Every moment of delay potentially puts people at risk." That's when Sarah, who had been quietly observing the exchange, did something that changed everything. She pulled out her phone and, without saying a word, began recording the conversation. "For our records," she explained when Agent Harris noticed what she was doing, "we document all official interactions involving animals in our care." The effect on Agent Harris was immediate and telling. His confident posture shifted, and his eyes darted between Sarah's phone and the exits. For just a moment, the mask of official authority slipped, revealing something underneath that looked much more like desperation than bureaucratic procedure. "That won't be necessary," he said quickly. "I can see you're busy with the animal's care. I'll return later with the proper documentation." As Agent Harris turned to leave, Kai spoke up for the first time since the man had arrived. His voice was quiet, but carried clearly across the room. "Atlas doesn't want to go with you," he said simply. "He's scared of you." Everyone turned to look at the treatment table where Atlas lay. Despite his injuries and weakened state, the German Shepherd had managed to lift his head and was looking directly at Agent Harris. His lips were pulled back slightly, not quite a snarl, but definitely not the expression of a friendly dog meeting a familiar person. "Agent..." "Oh." Harris paused in the doorway, his gaze moving between Kai and Atlas. "Children often misinterpret animal behavior," he said dismissively. "I'll be back within the hour with proper authorization." After he left, the treatment room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Dr. Martinez was the first to speak, her voice thoughtful and concerned. "In 15 years of veterinary practice, I've never had animal control show up for a rescue case without proper paperwork," she said, "especially not within hours of the animal being found." "Something felt off about him," Emma agreed. "How did he even know we were here? We didn't report the rescue to any official agencies." Sarah was still holding her phone, the recording app still running. "I got the whole conversation. If there's something suspicious going on, we have evidence of this interaction." Dr. Martinez nodded approvingly. "Good thinking. Let's focus on Atlas's medical needs for now, but I think we should be prepared for that man to return. And when he does, I want to see proper documentation before this dog goes anywhere." As they returned their attention to Atlas, Emma noticed something remarkable. The dog's vital signs, which had been concerning when they first arrived, showed marked improvement. His breathing was stronger, his color was better, and there was an alertness in his eyes that hadn't been there during the rescue. "The warming therapy is working well, Doctor," Martinez observed, checking the readouts on her monitoring equipment. "His core temperature is coming up, and his heart rate is stabilizing. Whatever you did during that car ride, it helped save his life." Emma looked at her son, who was back to his quiet stroking of Atlas's head. The humming had returned, that same mysterious melody that seemed to have such a calming effect on the injured animal. "Kai seems to have a natural gift with animals," she said softly. "I've never seen anything quite like it." "Some people do," Dr. Martinez agreed. "There are individuals who seem to communicate with animals on a level that goes beyond normal interaction. Your son appears to be one of them." As they prepared Atlas for x-rays to assess the extent of his injuries, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled into something much bigger than a simple animal rescue. The mysterious metal cylinder, the convenient appearance of Agent Harris, and her son's inexplicable connection with Atlas all pointed to a story with deeper layers than what appeared on the surface. But one thing was certain: whatever secrets Atlas was carrying, whatever dangers might be lurking in his past, Emma and Kai weren't going to abandon him. They had pulled him from the river, and they would see this through to the end, no matter where it led them. The bond between Kai and Atlas had been forged in those desperate moments by the rising water, and Emma was beginning to understand that some connections transcend explanation. Whatever was coming next, they would face it together. What could possibly be hidden in that mysterious metal cylinder that made someone so desperate to get Atlas back? Drop a comment below and tell us what you think is really going on here. The X-ray results revealed the full extent of Atlas's injuries, and while serious, they were treatable. The fracture in his front leg was clean and would heal properly with the right care. Dr. Martinez had successfully stabilized his condition, getting his core temperature back to normal and establishing an IV line to combat the dehydration that had weakened his body. "He's going to need surgery to set that leg properly," Dr. Martinez explained to Emma as they looked at the black and white images on the light board. "But given what he's been through, he's remarkably resilient. German Shepherds are tough dogs, and this one seems to have an especially strong will to live." Emma glanced over at Kai, who had barely left Atlas's side since they arrived at the clinic. Her son was curled up in a chair next to the recovery cage where Atlas rested, his small hand extended through the bars to maintain contact with the dog's head. The connection between them seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour, as if they were communicating in a language only they understood. "When can we take him home?" Kai asked suddenly, his voice carrying a certainty that surprised Emma. Not if they could take him home, but when. In his 5-year-old mind, there was no question that Atlas belonged with them now. Dr. Martinez smiled gently at the boy's assumption. "Well, that's not really up to me, sweetie. Atlas doesn't belong to you and your mom. Someone out there is probably looking for him." "No," Kai said with quiet conviction. "No one is looking for him. No one who loves him anyway." The certainty in her son's voice sent a chill down Emma's spine. How could a 5-year-old be so sure about something like that? But as she looked at Atlas, she had to admit that Kai might be right. The dog's condition when they found him suggested neglect, not the temporary loss of a beloved pet. Dr. Martinez picked up the small metal cylinder they had removed from Atlas's collar, turning it over in her hands. "Before we make any decisions about his future, we need to figure out what this is. I've never seen anything like it on a pet collar." "Can you open it?" Emma asked, her curiosity overcoming her caution. "I could, but maybe we should wait. If this contains some kind of identification or medical information, there might be legal implications to accessing it without proper authority." That's when Sarah poked her head into the recovery room, her expression troubled. "Dr. Martinez, we have a problem. That Agent Harris is back, and this time, he's not alone." Through the window, Emma could see a black SUV parked in the clinic's lot. 2 men in dark suits stood beside it, their posture and demeanor screaming government authority. Agent Harris was walking toward the clinic entrance, and this time he carried a folder that presumably contained the documentation he had lacked earlier. "I don't like this," Dr. Martinez muttered, instinctively stepping closer to Atlas's cage. "Something about this whole situation feels wrong." Emma felt panic rising in her chest. After everything they had been through to save Atlas, the thought of handing him over to people who might not have his best interests at heart was unbearable. But what choice did they have if the men had proper legal authority? "There has to be something we can do," she said desperately. "We can't just let them take him." That's when Kai stood up from his chair, his small frame somehow radiating determination that seemed far beyond his years. "They're not taking Atlas," he announced with quiet certainty. "He doesn't want to go with them." As if responding to his name, Atlas lifted his head and looked directly at the boy. Despite the pain medication and his obvious discomfort, there was intelligence and awareness in his gaze. He seemed to understand that something important was happening. Dr. Martinez made a decision that would change everything. Moving quickly, she twisted the cap off the small metal cylinder and shook its contents into her palm. Instead of identification papers or medical records, a tiny electronic device fell out. Something that looked like a micro SD card, but smaller and more sophisticated than anything Emma had ever seen. "This isn't pet identification, Doctor," Martinez said grimly. "This is data storage, professional grade by the looks of it." Before anyone could respond, Agent Harris's voice echoed through the clinic as he entered the front door. "We're here to collect the German Shepherd. I have all the necessary paperwork this time." Dr. Martinez quickly palmed the tiny device and looked at Sarah. "Stall them," she whispered. "Tell them we're in the middle of a medical procedure and can't be interrupted." Sarah nodded and headed for the front desk, while Dr. Martinez turned to Emma. "Is there anyone you trust who might be able to tell us what's on this device? Someone with technical expertise who wouldn't ask too many questions?" Emma's mind raced. Most of her friends were other single mothers struggling with their own challenges. But then she remembered Marcus, her ex-husband's brother, who worked in cybersecurity for a tech company downtown. They had stayed on good terms despite the divorce, and he owed her a favor from when she had helped him through his own difficult breakup. "I might know someone," Emma said, "but we'd have to get out of here first." "There's a back exit through the storage room," Dr. Martinez said quickly. "But what about Atlas? He's in no condition to be moved again so soon." Kai spoke up from beside the cage. "Atlas says he's strong enough. He wants to come with us." Emma looked at her son, then at the injured dog who was somehow managing to stand despite his broken leg and general weakness. There was something in Atlas's posture that suggested Kai was right. The dog was determined to stay with them, even if it meant enduring more pain. The sound of raised voices from the front desk told them that Sarah's stalling tactics weren't going to work much longer. Agent Harris was becoming more insistent, and Emma could hear him mentioning words like federal authority and national security. Dr. Martinez made another snap decision. "I'm going with you," she announced, beginning to gather medical supplies. "If we're taking Atlas, he's going to need professional care. Besides, I want to know what's really going on here as much as you do." "You can't abandon your practice," Emma protested. But Dr. Martinez was already moving with purpose. "I have a colleague who can cover for me. This is bigger than a routine veterinary emergency. I can feel it. And that little boy's connection with Atlas isn't normal. There's something special happening here, and I want to be part of it." As they prepared for their escape, Atlas did something that stopped everyone in their tracks. Despite his injuries, he managed to stand and walk to the door of his cage, looking directly at Kai with an expression that seemed almost human in its intelligence. Then he barked. Not a cry of pain or distress, but a single, clear bark that sounded like communication. Like he was saying, "Yes," or "Let's go," or "I trust you." Kai's response was immediate. He opened the cage door and knelt beside Atlas, wrapping his small arms gently around the dog's neck. "I know," he whispered. "We're going to figure this out together." The escape from the clinic felt like something out of a movie. Dr. Martinez led them through a maze of storage rooms and supply closets to a back door that opened onto an alley behind the building. Emma carried the medical supplies while Kai walked beside Atlas, who managed to limp along despite his obvious discomfort. "My car is parked 2 blocks away," Dr. Martinez said, checking to make sure the alley was clear. "I always park there when I know I'm going to have a long day." Never thought it would come in handy for something like this. As they made their way through back streets and side alleys, Emma couldn't help but feel like they were characters in some kind of conspiracy thriller. The ordinary morning that had started with a simple walk by the river had transformed into something that felt dangerous and uncertain. But every time doubt crept into her mind, she would look at Kai walking beside Atlas, and her resolve would strengthen. Whatever was happening, whatever secrets they had stumbled into, her son was at the center of it. And if Kai trusted Atlas, then Emma would trust them both. Dr. Martinez's car was a practical sedan that barely accommodated all of them, plus Atlas, but they made it work. The dog seemed to understand the need for quiet and stillness, settling into the back seat between Emma and Kai without complaint. "Where are we going?" Emma asked as Dr. Martinez started the engine. "My sister's place," Dr. Martinez replied. "She has a cabin about an hour outside the city, right on the lake. It's isolated and private, perfect for laying low while we figure out what we're dealing with." As they drove through the outskirts of the city, Emma called Marcus from her phone. The conversation was awkward at first. They hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized. But when she explained that she needed help with a cybersecurity issue, his tone became serious and professional. "I can't explain everything over the phone," Emma said carefully, aware that she might sound paranoid. "But I have a small data storage device that might contain important information. Can you meet us somewhere private to take a look at it?" Marcus agreed to meet them at Dr. Martinez's sister's cabin, though Emma could hear the curiosity and concern in his voice. She gave him the address and promised to explain everything when he arrived. The cabin turned out to be a rustic but comfortable retreat nestled among tall pines on the shore of a pristine lake. It was the kind of place that felt completely removed from the modern world, where cell phone reception was spotty and the only sounds were wind through the trees and water lapping against the dock. Dr. Martinez had called ahead, and her sister had given permission to use the place as long as they needed. The isolation that had seemed like a luxury feature now felt like a necessity. If Agent Harris and his colleagues were as determined as they seemed, this remote location might be their only chance to stay ahead of whatever forces were pursuing Atlas. Setting up Atlas in the cabin's main room, Doctor. Martinez administered pain medication and checked his vital signs. The dog was holding up remarkably well considering everything he had been through, but he clearly needed rest and continued medical monitoring. "He's stable," Dr. Martinez announced after completing her examination. "That leg needs to be casted properly, but it can wait a few hours. Right now, what he needs most is calm and quiet." Kai immediately claimed the spot next to Atlas, settling onto the floor beside the makeshift bed they had created from blankets and cushions. The boy's presence seemed to have an almost magical effect on the injured animal. His breathing became easier, his posture relaxed, and the alertness in his eyes suggested he was feeling more secure. "Tell me about this connection between your son and Atlas," Dr. Martinez said quietly to Emma as they watched the pair from across the room. "Have you ever seen anything like it before?" Emma shook her head. "Kai's always been gentle with animals, but this is different. It's like they're communicating on some level that I can't understand. And that humming, I've never heard him make sounds like that before. Some people believe that certain individuals can form telepathic bonds with animals," Dr. Martinez said thoughtfully. "It's not scientifically proven, but I've seen enough unexplained connections in my practice to keep an open mind." Before Emma could respond, the sound of a car engine announced Marcus's arrival. She watched through the window as her former brother-in-law climbed out of his pickup truck, looking around at the remote setting with obvious curiosity. Marcus was a tall, lanky man in his 30s, with the kind of technical expertise that made him valuable to both corporations and government agencies. His work in cybersecurity had exposed him to enough classified projects that he understood the importance of discretion and security. "This better be good," he said as Emma led him into the cabin. "I told my boss I had a family emergency to get out of work early." Emma introduced him to Dr. Martinez and explained the basic facts of their situation: the rescue from the river, the mysterious cylinder, and the suspicious visit from Agent Harris. She left out some of the more extraordinary details about Kai's connection with Atlas, not sure how Marcus would react to those claims. When Dr. Martinez handed him the tiny data device, Marcus's expression became serious. "This is military grade," he said immediately, examining the device under the cabin's bright kitchen light. "Maybe intelligence community. Definitely not something you'd find in civilian applications." "Can you access whatever's on it?" Emma asked. "Probably, but we need to be careful. If this came from a classified project, accessing it without authorization could be a federal crime. Are you sure you want to go down this road?" Emma looked over at Kai and Atlas, the boy's small hand resting protectively on the dog's head. "We're already down this road," she said firmly. "Whatever's on that device, people are willing to use false authority and intimidation to get it back. I need to know what we're dealing with." Marcus nodded and pulled a sophisticated-looking laptop from his bag. "Give me a few minutes to set up some security protocols. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right." As Marcus worked, Emma found herself drawn back to Kai and Atlas. Her son was telling the dog a story about a brave knight who rescued animals from danger, his voice soft and soothing. Atlas listened with the kind of attention that suggested he understood every word. "Once upon a time," Kai was saying, "there was a knight who could talk to all the animals in the forest. When they were scared or hurt, they would come to him for help, because they knew he would never let anything bad happen to them." The innocence of the story contrasted sharply with the adult concerns swirling around them, but there was something about Kai's words that felt prophetic. Maybe that's exactly what her son was, a 5-year-old knight who had appeared at exactly the right moment to save Atlas from the rising waters. "I'm in," Marcus announced suddenly, his voice tight with concentration and haying concern. "And Emma, you need to see this." The laptop screen displayed a video file with a timestamp from several weeks earlier. As Marcus clicked play, a shaky image appeared, showing what looked like the interior of a laboratory or research facility. The person holding the camera was clearly nervous, their breathing audible on the audio track. The image swayed and jerked as they moved through corridors lined with cages, and Emma felt her stomach turn as she realized what she was seeing. "My name is Dr. Jennifer Park," a woman's voice said from the video. "I'm a veterinary researcher at North Lake Biodefense Laboratory. I'm recording this because I can't stay silent anymore about what's happening here." The camera panned across rows of cages, each containing a different breed of dog. German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, Border Collies, all breeds known for their intelligence and trainability. The animals looked healthy but subdued, as if they had been sedated or were under the influence of some kind of medication. "The official project description says we're developing new training techniques for military and police K9 units," Dr. Park continued, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. "But that's not what's really happening. The dogs are being used as test subjects for experimental neural interface technology." Emma felt Dr. Martinez stiffen beside her. "Neural interface technology? What does that mean?" "Keep watching," Marcus said grimly. The video continued as Dr. Park moved deeper into the facility. The goal is to create dogs that can be remotely controlled through electronic implants, direct neural stimulation to override their natural instincts and behaviors. The applications for military and intelligence operations would be significant. The camera focused on a particular cage where a German Shepherd lay motionless, electrodes attached to his head. Emma felt her blood run cold as she realized the dog looked very similar to Atlas. "The problem is that the technology isn't working as intended," Dr. Park continued. "Instead of creating controllable soldiers, we're creating animals with enhanced cognitive abilities. They're becoming smarter, more aware, more capable of independent thought. And some of them are developing what can only be described as psychic abilities." "Psychic abilities?" Dr. Martinez whispered. "Is she saying what I think she's saying?" The video showed Dr. Park approaching one of the cages, where a German Shepherd sat alert and watching. As she extended her hand toward the cage, the dog began to vocalize, not barking, but a series of sounds that seemed almost like attempts at human speech. "This is Atlas," Dr. Park said, and Emma felt her heart stop. "He's the most advanced subject we have. 3 weeks ago, he was just an ordinary German Shepherd. Now he can understand complex human speech, solve problems that would challenge some people, and he seems to be able to communicate telepathically with certain individuals." The video showed Atlas standing in his cage, his eyes fixed on Dr. Park with an intensity that was almost human. When she spoke to him, he responded not with barking, but with that same melodic humming that Kai had been using to calm him. "The worst part is what they're planning to do next," Dr. Park continued, her voice breaking with emotion. "The project directors want to weaponize these abilities. They're talking about using the enhanced dogs as living surveillance equipment, able to infiltrate areas where human agents couldn't go and report back through their psychic connections." The video began to shake more violently as Dr. Park became more agitated. "I can't be part of this anymore. It's cruel and it's dangerous. These animals didn't ask to be turned into weapons, and some of the other researchers are starting to question what we're creating." The screen went black for a moment, then resumed with Dr. Park in what looked like an office setting. "I'm leaving coordinates for the facility and the names of the key personnel involved in this project. If anything happens to me, I want people to know the truth about what Northlake is really doing." A list of coordinates and names flashed on the screen, followed by technical documents that Marcus quickly screenshot for later analysis. The video ended with Dr. Park looking directly into the camera. "To whoever finds this recording, these animals deserve better than what we've done to them. If you can help them, please do. They're not weapons or tools. They're intelligent beings who have been betrayed by the humans they trusted." The cabin fell into stunned silence as the video ended. Emma looked over at Atlas, who was watching them with those intelligent eyes that now made perfect sense. He wasn't just a lucky survivor of an accident. He was a refugee from a secret government experiment, enhanced far beyond normal canine capabilities. "That explains everything, Doctor," Martinez said quietly. "The connection with Kai, the intelligence in his behavior, even why those men were so desperate to get him back." Marcus was already working on his laptop, running searches on the names and locations from Dr. Park's video. "North Lake Biodefense Laboratory is about 30 miles upriver from where you found Atlas," he reported. "And according to public records, Dr. Jennifer Park was reported missing 2 weeks ago." Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cabin's temperature. Missing? Officially, she took a leave of absence for personal reasons, but her neighbors reported that she never came home one night, and her car was found abandoned near the laboratory complex. The implications hung heavy in the air. Dr. Park had tried to expose the truth about what was being done to Atlas and the other dogs, and she had disappeared. Now, Atlas had escaped, carrying with him the evidence that could expose the entire project. No wonder they want him back so badly, Emma said, looking at the injured dog with new understanding. He's not just a test subject, he's a witness. Kai had been listening to the adult conversation with the solemn attention that children sometimes showed when they sensed something important was happening. Now he looked up at his mother with eyes that seemed far older than his 5 years. Atlas told me about the bad place, he said quietly. In the pictures in his head, that's why he was so scared by the river. He thought they had found him again. The simple statement from her son confirmed what Emma had been trying to deny. The connection between Kai and Atlas went far beyond normal human-animal bonding. Somehow, impossibly, they were communicating on a level that defied scientific explanation. Dr. Martinez knelt down beside Kai and Atlas, her professional skepticism warring with what she had witnessed firsthand. Kai, when Atlas shows you pictures in your head, what else does he tell you? He says there are other dogs still trapped in the bad place, Kai replied without hesitation. They're scared and they want to come home too, but they don't know how to escape like Atlas did. Emma felt her heart breaking for all the animals still trapped in North Lake's facility. But she also felt a growing determination. They had saved Atlas from drowning, but that was just the beginning. If Dr. Park's video was accurate, there were dozens of other enhanced dogs being held against their will, subjected to experiments that violated every principle of animal welfare. We have to do something, she said, though she wasn't sure what actions were even possible against a facility with apparent government backing. Marcus was still working on his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he dug deeper into the information Dr. Park had provided. The good news is that this project appears to be off the books, he reported. It's not showing up in any official government databases, which means it's either classified above my clearance level or it's being run without proper authorization. What's the difference? Dr. Martinez asked. If it's an unauthorized black project, then we might be able to expose it through normal channels, regulatory agencies, congressional oversight committees, investigative journalists. They all have the power to shut down illegal research. Emma felt a spark of hope. You think we can actually stop this? Maybe, Marcus said cautiously, but we need more evidence than just Dr. Park's video. We need proof that the facility exists, documentation of what they're doing, and ideally some way to verify that the animals are being mistreated. That's when Atlas did something that made everyone in the room stop talking. He stood up, despite his injuries, and walked over to Marcus's laptop. Looking directly at the screen, he began to vocalize, not barking, but a series of sounds that were hauntingly similar to human speech. Kai immediately moved to Atlas's side, placing his hand on the dog's head as if receiving a transmission. He says he knows how to get back to the bad place, the boy announced. He remembers the way, and he says Dr. Park hid more evidence there before she left. The adults exchanged glances, recognizing the impossible choice that was forming before them. They could try to disappear with Atlas, hoping to stay ahead of Agent Harris and his team indefinitely, or they could use the connection between Kai and Atlas to gather the evidence needed to expose North Lake and rescue the other animals. Both options were dangerous. Both required them to trust in abilities and connections that couldn't be scientifically explained. But as Emma looked at her brave 5-year-old son and the remarkable dog who had found them by the river, she realized that some decisions went beyond logic and safety. Sometimes you had to choose between what was easy and what was right. And for Emma, there was really no choice at all. Could a 5-year-old boy and an escaped lab dog really take down a secret government facility? Tell us in the comments what you think their next move should be. The decision to investigate the North Lake facility wasn't made lightly, but once Emma committed to the plan, everything moved quickly. Marcus spent the rest of the evening analyzing the data from Dr. Park's device, cross-referencing the coordinates with satellite imagery and building schematics that he accessed through his professional contacts. The facility is more isolated than I expected, Marcus reported, pointing to images on his laptop screen. It's built into a hillside about 5 miles from the main river, connected by a service road that doesn't show up on most maps. The official record's listed as a veterinary research station, but the security features are way beyond what you'd need for normal animal studies. Dr. Martinez had been studying the technical documents from Dr. Park's video, her medical training, helping her understand the implications of the research. What they were doing to these animals is unprecedented, she said grimly. Neural interface technology is still experimental in humans. To be testing it on dogs without proper oversight is not just unethical, it's dangerous. Emma listened to their analysis while watching Kai and Atlas. Her son had fallen asleep curled up next to the injured dog, one small hand resting on Atlas's head. Even in sleep, the connection between them seemed active. Sometimes Kai would murmur softly, and Atlas's ears would twitch in response. "How do we know this isn't some kind of elaborate hoax?" Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. The evidence of her own eyes was too strong to deny. "I mean, psychic dogs sounds like something out of a science fiction movie." 3 days ago, I would have agreed with you, Dr. Martinez replied. "But I've seen the connection between your son and Atlas. I've watched him respond to commands he shouldn't understand and communicate in ways that go beyond normal animal behavior. Whatever they did to him at that facility, it worked." Marcus had moved on to researching the personnel mentioned in Dr. Park's video. Dr. William Crenshaw, the project director, has a history with classified defense contracts. His previous work involved psychological warfare techniques and behavior modification. And Agent Harris, his real name is Robert Harris, is listed as a security contractor with ties to several intelligence agencies. "So he really was some kind of federal agent?" Emma asked. "Technically, yes. But he's working for a private contractor, not a direct government agency. That explains why he didn't have proper paperwork at the clinic. His authority comes from corporate security, not law enforcement." As the night wore on, they developed a plan that felt both desperate and necessary. Marcus would use his technical skills to disable the facility's security systems temporarily, creating a window for them to enter and document what they found. Dr. Martinez would provide medical support for any animals they encountered, and Emma would stay with Kai and Atlas, using their unique connection to navigate the facility and locate Dr. Park's hidden evidence. "This is incredibly dangerous," Marcus warned as they finalized their preparations. "If we're caught, we could be charged with breaking and entering, interfering with federal research, and probably a dozen other crimes I can't even think of. And if we do nothing, those animals stay trapped," Emma countered. "Atlas escaped by accident when flooding damaged part of the facility. The others don't have that chance." Dr. Martinez had been quiet during most of the planning discussion, but now she spoke up with quiet determination. "I took an oath when I became a veterinarian to prevent animal suffering. What's happening at that facility violates everything I believe in. I'm going." They decided to approach the facility in the early hours before dawn, when security would be at its lightest and most of the research staff would be off duty. Marcus had identified what appeared to be a service entrance that would give them access to the main laboratory areas without triggering the primary security systems. As they prepared to leave the cabin, Kai woke up and immediately sensed the tension in the room. "We're going to help the other dogs," he said, not asking but stating it as a fact. "It's too dangerous for you to come with us," Emma said gently. "You and Atlas need to stay here where it's safe." But Atlas had other ideas. Despite his injuries, he struggled to his feet and moved to the door, looking back at them with an expression that clearly said he wasn't staying behind. "He says we need him to find the secret room," Kai translated, his small hand resting on Atlas's head. Dr. Park hid things where only the dogs could find them. Emma felt her carefully constructed plan beginning to crumble. The idea of bringing her 5-year-old son into a potentially dangerous situation went against every maternal instinct she had. But she was beginning to understand that this mission might not be possible without both Kai and Atlas. "The facility covers several acres," Marcus said, studying the building schematics. "Without Atlas to guide us, we could spend hours searching and never find what we're looking for." Dr. Martinez checked Atlas's condition one more time, examining his injured leg and monitoring his vital signs. "He's stable enough for limited activity," she reported reluctantly. "But if we do this, we need to be in and out quickly. He needs rest and proper medical care." The drive to the North Lake facility took them through winding country roads that cut through dense forest. Emma's SUV was large enough to accommodate all of them, plus the medical supplies doctor. Martinez insisted on bringing. Atlas rode in the back with Kai, alert and focused despite the late hour. As they got closer to their destination, the landscape became more desolate. The trees grew thicker, blocking out most of the starlight and creating an oppressive sense of isolation. Emma couldn't help but think that this was exactly the kind of place where secret experiments could be conducted without outside interference. "Turn your headlights off," Marcus instructed as they approached the final mile. "There might be perimeter sensors, and we don't want to announce our arrival." Driving by moonlight on the narrow service road was treacherous, but Emma managed to navigate the twists and turns without running off into the ditch. When the North Lake facility finally came into view, it looked more like a military installation than a veterinary research center. The main building was a low, concrete structure built into the side of a hill, with minimal windows and what appeared to be reinforced doors. Security fencing surrounded the perimeter, though Marcus had already identified sections where his electronic countermeasures could temporarily disable the alarm systems. "Remember, we have maybe an hour before the security systems reset," Marcus whispered as they approached the service entrance he had selected. "After that, we're on our own." The lock on the service door yielded to Marcus's electronic tools faster than Emma had expected. Within minutes, they were inside the facility, moving through dimly lit corridors that smelled of disinfectant and something else: fear, desperation, and the lingering scent of too many animals in too small a space. Atlas immediately became more alert, his head turning towards sounds and scents that the humans couldn't detect. Through Kai, he began to guide them deeper into the facility, away from the administrative areas and toward what Dr. Park's video had shown as the main laboratory complex. "This way," Kai whispered, one hand on Atlas's head as they moved through the maze of corridors. He remembers. The first laboratory they entered contained equipment that looked both sophisticated and sinister. Rows of computer monitors displayed brainwave patterns and neural activity readings. Surgical equipment lay on sterile trays, some of it still showing traces of recent use. Dr. Martinez examined the setup with growing horror. "This is brain surgery equipment," she said quietly. "They've been implanting devices directly into these animals' skulls." Emma felt sick as she realized the full extent of what Atlas had endured. The scars hidden beneath his fur, the intelligence in his eyes, the psychic connection with her son, all of it had been purchased with invasive surgery and experimentation that would be considered torture if performed on humans. But Atlas was pulling them forward, through the surgical suite and toward a section of the building that felt different from the rest. The walls here were thicker, the doors more heavily reinforced. This was where the actual test subjects were housed. The first cage they encountered contained a Belgian Malinois who looked up at them with eyes that held too much awareness. Like Atlas, this dog had been changed by whatever procedures had been performed on him. When he saw Atlas, he began to vocalize, not barking, but the same kind of attempted speech they had seen in Dr. Park's video. "He's trying to talk," Dr. Martinez whispered in amazement. "They've actually enhanced his cognitive abilities to the point where he's attempting human communication." Kai moved closer to the cage, and immediately the dog's agitation decreased. Whatever connection Kai had with Atlas seemed to extend to the other enhanced animals as well. "His name is Ranger," Kai reported. "He says the bad people hurt him, but he's been trying to be brave." The next row of cages revealed the full scope of the experiments: German Shepherds, Border Collies, Golden Retrievers, all breeds known for intelligence and loyalty, all showing signs of the neural enhancement procedures. Some bore visible scars from surgery, while others displayed behavioral changes that spoke of psychological trauma. But it was what they found in the final section that truly broke Emma's heart. Smaller cages, barely large enough for the animals to stand, contained dogs that appeared to be in the early stages of the enhancement process. These animals were clearly suffering, some of them barely conscious from sedation or pain medication. "We have to get them out of here," Dr. Martinez said, her professional composure cracking as she saw the conditions the animals were being kept in. "This isn't research, it's systematic abuse." That's when Atlas led them to what they had really come to find. In a corner of the laboratory complex, hidden behind what looked like a maintenance panel, was a small room that didn't appear on any of the building schematics Marcus had studied. The room contained Dr. Park's real legacy, dozens of video files, research documents, and evidence that the North Lake Project had gone far beyond its original mandate. According to the documents, the neural enhancement procedures had been successful in creating psychic abilities in the test subjects, but the project directors had decided to weaponize the technology rather than studying its scientific implications. "Look at this," Marcus said, downloading files from Dr. Park's hidden computer system. They were planning to create an army of psychic attack dogs, animals that could be controlled remotely and used for surveillance, infiltration, and even assassination. Emma felt her blood run cold as she read over Marcus's shoulder. The documents detailed plans to sell the enhanced animals to foreign governments and terrorist organizations, turning Dr. Park's research into a profitable weapons trade. "No wonder she tried to expose them," Dr. Martinez said. "This isn't just animal abuse, it's a national security threat." But their discovery mission was interrupted by a sound that made everyone freeze. Footsteps in the corridor outside, accompanied by the low murmur of human voices. "Security patrol," Marcus whispered, checking his watch. "They're early." Atlas immediately became tense, his body language shifting into a protective stance. Through Kai, Emma could sense the dog's recognition of danger and his determination to protect the small group that had become his pack. "There's another way out," Kai whispered, translating Atlas's guidance. "Through the old tunnels." Atlas led them to what appeared to be a solid wall, but closer inspection revealed a hidden panel that opened onto a maintenance tunnel. The passage was narrow and dark, clearly designed for utility access rather than human travel, but it offered their only chance of escaping without confrontation. As they crawled through the tunnel system, Emma could hear the security team discovering their presence in the laboratory. Shouts echoed through the facility as guards realized that someone had breached their supposedly secure installation. "They'll know we were here," Marcus said, as they emerged from the tunnel system into the forest outside the facility. "All the evidence we copied, the animals we disturbed, there's no way to hide what we did." "Good," Dr. Martinez replied firmly. "Let them know that people are watching. Let them know that their secret isn't safe anymore." But their immediate concern was getting back to safety with the evidence they had gathered. The files from Dr. Park's hidden computer contained enough documentation to expose the entire project, but only if they could get the information to the right people before Agent Harris and his team caught up with them. The drive back to the cabin felt endless, with Emma constantly checking the rearview mirror for signs of pursuit. Atlas remained alert throughout the journey, his enhanced senses monitoring for threats that human perception might miss. "We need to move fast," Marcus said as they reached the cabin. "I'm going to upload these files to multiple secure servers simultaneously. News organizations, government oversight committees, animal rights groups, everyone who has the power to shut this operation down." Dr. Martinez was already on her phone, calling contacts in the veterinary community and regulatory agencies. "I'm reporting North Lake for violations of animal welfare standards," she announced. Even if the psychic enhancement claims sound too incredible to believe, the evidence of animal abuse is undeniable. As the adults worked to disseminate the evidence they had gathered, Kai sat with Atlas in the cabin's main room. The injured dog seemed more peaceful now, as if the rescue mission had given him a sense of purpose and closure. "Atlas says thank you," Kai reported, his small hand stroking the dog's head. "He says the other dogs know that people are coming to help them now." Emma looked at her son, amazed once again by the strength and maturity he had shown throughout this extraordinary experience. In less than 24 hours, he had helped rescue a dying animal, formed a psychic connection that defied explanation, and participated in exposing a secret government conspiracy. "How do you feel about everything that's happened?" she asked him. Kai considered the question with the seriousness that had become his trademark. "I feel sad for the dogs who got hurt," he said finally. "But I feel happy that Atlas found us. I think we were supposed to help him." The response was so typically Kai, focusing on the emotional truth of the situation rather than the complex political and scientific implications. But Emma was beginning to think that her son's perspective might be the most accurate one of all. They had been brought together by chance: a morning walk by a flooded river, a dog trapped in rising water, a child with an unusual gift for connecting with animals. But the chain of events that followed felt anything but random. Dr. Park's hidden evidence, Marcus's technical skills, Dr. Martinez's medical expertise, all of it had converged at exactly the right moment to expose a conspiracy that might otherwise have remained hidden forever. As dawn broke over the lake, Emma received a call that changed everything. It was Sarah from the veterinary clinic, and her voice was excited with news. "You need to turn on the news," Sarah said breathlessly. "That Agent Harris who was looking for your dog, he and 3 other men were arrested an hour ago trying to break into the clinic. And there's something else. The FBI is raiding some kind of research facility outside the city." Emma turned on the cabin's television to find breaking news coverage of a federal raid on the North Lake Biodefense Laboratory. The reporter was standing outside the facility they had infiltrated just hours earlier, describing it as a suspected illegal animal testing operation that may have violated multiple federal laws. The investigation was launched after an anonymous tip provided federal authorities with extensive documentation of alleged animal abuse and unauthorized weapons research, the reporter continued. Several individuals have been taken into custody, and dozens of animals are being removed from the facility for medical evaluation. Marcus looked up from his laptop with satisfaction. "The files we uploaded made it to the right people, and it looks like they acted fast." Dr. Martinez was watching the news coverage with tears in her eyes. "Those poor animals are finally going to get proper care," she said, "and the people responsible are going to face justice." But the most important moment came when Kai looked up at the television screen and then at Atlas. "He says the other dogs are happy now," the boy reported. "They know they're safe." Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she was carrying. The dangerous part of their adventure was over, but the bond between her son and Atlas would last forever. They had started the day as strangers united by a rescue, and ended it as a family united by purpose. The news coverage continued throughout the morning, with additional details emerging about the scope of the North Lake operation. Dr. Park's body had been found on the facility grounds, confirming their worst fears about her fate. But her hidden evidence had accomplished what she died trying to achieve: the exposure and shutdown of an illegal program that had caused immeasurable suffering. As Emma watched the rescued animals being loaded into veterinary transport vehicles on the news, she realized that their story was far from over. Atlas would need ongoing medical care, and his enhanced abilities would require careful study by ethical researchers. The other animals would need homes and rehabilitation. But for now, it was enough to know that they had made a difference. A 5-year-old boy and an escaped laboratory dog had accomplished what trained investigators and oversight agencies had failed to do. They had brought the truth into the light. What do you think happened to Dr. Park, and could there be other secret facilities still operating? Share your theories in the comments below. The aftermath of the North Lake raid brought a whirlwind of attention that Emma hadn't anticipated. Within hours of the news breaking, their quiet lake cabin was surrounded by reporters, federal investigators, and animal rights activists, all wanting to speak with the family that had exposed the conspiracy. FBI agent Sandra Chen was the first official to arrive, her credentials genuine and her manner professional but understanding. She was a woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes and the kind of calm authority that came from years of investigating complex cases. "We need to debrief you about what you discovered at the facility," Agent Chen explained as she settled into the cabin's main room. "Your evidence has been instrumental in building our case, but we need to understand exactly how you obtained it." Emma found herself in the surreal position of explaining their nighttime break-in to a federal agent who seemed more interested in thanking them than arresting them. The legal implications of their actions were still unclear, but Agent Chen indicated that their whistleblower status would likely protect them from prosecution. "What you uncovered goes far beyond animal abuse," Agent Chen continued. "The North Lake Project was part of a larger network of unauthorized research facilities. We're using your evidence to obtain warrants for similar operations in 3 other states." Dr. Martinez leaned forward with interest. "How many animals are we talking about?" "Potentially hundreds," Agent Chen replied grimly. "The neural enhancement technology was being tested on different species at different facilities: dogs, dolphins, even some primates. It appears to be the largest illegal animal experimentation ring we've ever encountered." While the adults discussed the broader implications of their discovery, Kai remained focused on Atlas. The dog's condition had improved significantly with proper rest and medication, but he still moved carefully to protect his healing leg. More importantly, the psychological trauma of his experiences was beginning to surface as he felt safer. "He's having bad dreams," Kai reported to Dr. Martinez during one of her medical checks. "About the place with the cages and the people who hurt him." Dr. Martinez nodded sympathetically. "That's actually a good sign. It means he's processing what happened to him instead of suppressing it. Recovery includes dealing with emotional trauma, not just physical injuries. But Atlas's nightmares were affecting Kai as well. The psychic connection between them meant that the boy experienced echoes of the dog's distress, waking up in the middle of the night with anxiety that wasn't entirely his own. "I can see the pictures he sees," Kai explained to his mother one morning after a particularly difficult night. "The small cages, the bright lights, the needles. He was so scared, Mama." Emma held her son close, marveling at his emotional strength while worrying about the burden he was carrying. "Maybe, Doctor, Martinez knows someone who can help both of you work through this." The suggestion led to a conversation that would change their lives in unexpected ways. Dr. Martinez had contacts in the field of animal psychology, including researchers who specialized in the kind of human-animal bonds that Kai and Atlas shared. "There's a woman named Dr. Rebecca Winters who runs a rehabilitation center for animals with trauma histories," Dr. Martinez explained. "She's also one of the few legitimate researchers studying psychic connections between humans and animals. I think she could help both Kai and Atlas." Dr. Winters arrived at the cabin 2 days later, bringing with her an air of quiet competence and genuine curiosity. She was younger than Emma had expected, probably in her early 30s, with the kind of practical demeanor that suggested she spent more time with animals than in academic settings. "I've been following the North Lake story in the news," Dr. Winters said as she observed Kai and Atlas together. "What you've described about their connection is unprecedented, but not impossible. There are documented cases of enhanced animals forming telepathic bonds with sensitive humans." She spent several hours testing the limits of Kai and Atlas's connection, using carefully designed exercises that reminded Emma more of ESP experiments than veterinary medicine. The results were consistently remarkable. Kai could accurately describe images that Atlas was shown, and Atlas responded to commands that Kai delivered mentally rather than verbally. "This isn't just psychological bonding," Dr. Winters concluded. "The neural enhancement procedures appear to have amplified Atlas's natural empathic abilities to the point where he can establish genuine telepathic communication with receptive individuals." "Is it permanent?" Emma asked, still struggling to accept the reality of her son's new abilities. "As far as we know, yes," Dr. Winters replied. "The neural pathways that were enhanced in Atlas can't be reversed, and Kai's sensitivity appears to be a natural gift that the connection has awakened. But this doesn't have to be a burden. It could be an extraordinary opportunity." Dr. Winters explained that her research center was developing new approaches to animal therapy and rehabilitation based on enhanced human-animal communication. She was looking for both animals and humans who could participate in her program, helping to heal trauma while advancing understanding of psychic phenomena. "I'd like to invite all of you to visit our facility," she said. "Atlas could help other animals work through their trauma while receiving ongoing care for his own recovery, and Kai could learn to manage and develop his abilities in a supportive environment." The idea was appealing, but Emma had concerns about uprooting their lives for something that still felt too extraordinary to be real. What would that mean for Kai's normal childhood? School, friends, all the regular things kids need. "We have educational programs designed for children with special abilities," Dr. Winters assured her. "Kai wouldn't be the first child we've worked with who has psychic connections to animals, and the center is located in a small college town with excellent schools and a supportive community." As they discussed the possibility, Agent Chen arrived with updates on the federal investigation that changed everyone's perspective on their situation. "We've arrested 17 people connected to the North Lake network," she reported, "but some of the key figures are still at large, including Dr. Crenshaw, the project director. We have reason to believe they may attempt to recover some of their test subjects." Emma felt her blood run cold. "You mean they might come after Atlas?" "It's possible," Agent Chen admitted. "The enhanced animals represent years of research and development. To the people behind this project, they're valuable assets worth recovering. The threat was real enough that Agent Chen recommended they accept Dr. Winters' offer, at least temporarily. Her facility has security measures in place for protecting unusual animals, she explained, and being part of a legitimate research program would give you legal protections that you don't have as private citizens. The decision to move to Dr. Winters' center was made quickly, driven by both opportunity and necessity. Emma gave notice at her part-time jobs and began packing their belongings, while Dr. Martinez arranged to take a sabbatical from her practice to continue studying Atlas's case. "I've never seen anything like what you've discovered," Dr. Martinez told Emma as they prepared for the move. "This could revolutionize our understanding of animal consciousness and human-animal communication. I want to be part of that research." Marcus had also made a life-changing decision. His role in exposing the North Lake conspiracy had brought him to the attention of federal cybersecurity agencies, leading to job offers that would advance his career while allowing him to continue investigating similar cases. "There are more facilities out there," he told Emma during one of their final conversations at the cabin. "The evidence we found suggests that North Lake was just one node in a much larger network. I'm going to help track down the rest of them." As they prepared to leave the cabin that had been their refuge during the most extraordinary week of their lives, Emma reflected on how much had changed. She had started this journey as a struggling single mother looking for a peaceful morning walk with her son. Now, she was moving across the country to participate in groundbreaking research into psychic phenomena. But the most remarkable change was in Kai himself. Her quiet, withdrawn son had found his voice and his purpose through his connection with Atlas. The boy who used to whisper when speaking to strangers now talked confidently about his abilities and his desire to help other animals who had been hurt. "Atlas says the new place will be good," Kai reported as they loaded their belongings into Emma's SUV. "He can feel that it's safe, and there are other animals there who need his help." The drive to Dr. Winters' facility took them through beautiful countryside that felt like a fresh start. Atlas rode comfortably in the back seat, his leg healing well, and his spirits visibly improved. The nightmares were becoming less frequent, and he seemed to understand that his ordeal was truly over. Dr. Winters' center was located on a sprawling campus outside a picturesque college town, with modern research buildings surrounded by natural habitats for various animals. The facility housed everything from former circus animals to retired military working dogs, all receiving specialized care for physical and psychological trauma. "Welcome to Haven Hills," Dr. Winters said as she gave them a tour of the facility. "We believe that healing happens best in an environment of safety, understanding, and purpose." The residential area where they would be living was designed like a small neighborhood, with comfortable houses for families participating in the research program. Kai would attend the local elementary school while also participating in specialized training sessions to develop his abilities. "There are 3 other children here with similar gifts," Dr. Winters explained. "They'll be excited to meet someone who understands what they're experiencing." The idea that Kai wasn't alone in his abilities was both comforting and amazing to Emma. She had spent so much time worrying about whether her son's experiences were healthy or normal. But here was evidence that psychic connections between humans and animals were more common than she had realized. Atlas's integration into the facility was equally smooth. Dr. Winters had prepared a special area for him that combined medical care with the freedom to interact with other animals and continue his healing process. "We have several other animals here who were rescued from illegal research facilities," Dr. Winters explained as Atlas explored his new environment. "None of them have quite the same level of enhancement as Atlas, but they understand what he's been through." The first week at Haven Hills passed quickly as everyone adjusted to their new routines. Kai thrived in the environment, making friends with both children and animals while learning to control and focus his psychic abilities. Emma found work in the facility's administration, using her organizational skills to help manage the complex research and care programs. Dr. Martinez threw herself into studying Atlas's case, working with a team of researchers to document his abilities and develop protocols for helping other enhanced animals. The work was groundbreaking, potentially establishing new fields of study in both veterinary medicine and psychology. But their peaceful new life was interrupted by a development that reminded them of the dangers they had left behind. Agent Chen called one evening with news that sent chills through everyone at the facility. "We've intercepted communications suggesting that Dr. Crenshaw and his associates are planning some kind of operation to recover their lost assets," she reported. "They may have identified Atlas's location." Dr. Winters immediately activated the facility's security protocols, but she also had a suggestion that surprised everyone. "We could use this as an opportunity," she proposed during an emergency meeting. "If they're coming for Atlas, we could be ready for them. Document everything, gather evidence of their continuing illegal activities, and help law enforcement build a stronger case." The plan was risky, but it offered the chance to end the threat permanently rather than constantly looking over their shoulders. Working with Agent Chen and local law enforcement, they developed a strategy to capture Dr. Crenshaw and his team if they attempted to infiltrate the facility. Atlas seemed to understand that danger was approaching. His behavior became more alert and protective, and through Kai, he communicated his willingness to help catch the people who had hurt him and the other animals. "He's not scared anymore," Kai reported. "He says he's ready to fight back." The enhanced abilities that had made Atlas valuable to the illegal researchers now made him an ideal partner in their own investigation. His psychic senses could detect approaching threats long before human security systems, and his intelligence allowed him to participate in complex operational planning. "It's ironic," Dr. Martinez observed as they prepared for the confrontation. "They created these abilities to make Atlas into a weapon, but he's using them to protect innocent animals and expose their crimes." The waiting was the hardest part. For 3 days, everyone at the facility remained on high alert, ready for an attack that might or might not come. Security cameras monitored every approach to the campus, and Atlas provided early warning of any unusual activity in the surrounding area. When the attack finally came, it wasn't what anyone had expected. Instead of a direct assault on the facility, Dr. Crenshaw's team attempted a more subtle approach: infiltration through the cover of a fake regulatory inspection. The men who arrived at Haven Hills looked official enough, with government credentials and a story about following up on the North Lake investigation. But Atlas immediately sensed something wrong, his agitation alerting Kai and the security team that these weren't legitimate inspectors. "Atlas says they smell like the bad place," Kai whispered to Dr. Winters, as the fake inspectors demanded access to the facility's animals. "And they have the same machines that hurt him." Hidden cameras captured everything as Dr. Crenshaw's team revealed their true intentions. Instead of conducting an inspection, they began setting up equipment designed to sedate and transport the enhanced animals, particularly Atlas. "We're reclaiming government property," Dr. Crenshaw announced when Dr. Winters challenged their actions. "These animals were developed with federal funding and remain classified assets." But Agent Chen was ready with her own team of real federal agents, and the attempted theft became a well-documented federal crime. Dr. Crenshaw and his associates were arrested while trying to load Atlas into a specially equipped transport vehicle. "This time, we got them all," Agent Chen reported after the dust settled. "With the evidence from this attempted theft, we can connect them to the entire network of illegal facilities. This should shut down the whole operation permanently." The victory felt different from their initial success at North Lake. This time, they had fought back from a position of strength rather than desperation. Atlas had faced his tormentors and helped bring them to justice, finding closure that no amount of therapy could have provided. In the weeks that followed, the full scope of the illegal research network became clear. Dozens of facilities across the country were shut down. Hundreds of animals were rescued, and the people responsible faced serious federal charges. Dr. Park's sacrifice had ultimately saved countless animals from suffering, similar to what Atlas had endured. But perhaps the most important outcome was the legitimacy that the case brought to Dr. Winters' research. The evidence of genuine psychic abilities in enhanced animals led to proper funding and recognition for her work, establishing new standards for ethical research into human-animal communication. "You've changed everything," Dr. Winters told Emma as they watched Kai and Atlas playing with other children and animals in the facility's gardens. "Not just for us, but for the entire field of animal psychology." Emma looked at her son, now confident and happy in ways she had never seen before. The boy who had been so quiet and withdrawn just months earlier was now a leader among his peers, teaching other children how to communicate with traumatized animals. "I think Atlas changed us more than we changed anything else," Emma replied. He showed us what was possible when we stopped limiting ourselves to what we thought we understood. The transformation was visible in all of them. Dr. Martinez had pioneered new approaches to veterinary care that included psychological and psychic elements. Marcus had found his calling in exposing corruption and protecting vulnerable populations. And Emma had discovered strengths she never knew she possessed. But it was the bond between Kai and Atlas that remained the heart of their story. The connection forged in those desperate moments by the rising river had grown into something that benefited not just them, but everyone they encountered. As the sun set over Haven Hills, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. They had found their place in the world, their purpose, and their family. The journey that had started with a cry for help by a muddy riverbank had led them to a future none of them could have imagined. Atlas lay contentedly beside Kai in the garden, his injuries healed and his spirit restored. Through the boy's gentle touch, he had found not just rescue from physical danger, but redemption from the trauma that had been inflicted upon him. And in saving Atlas, Kai had discovered his own extraordinary gifts and the courage to use them in service of others. The quiet, sensitive child had become a bridge between human and animal consciousness, opening new possibilities for understanding and compassion. Their story had become larger than any of them had expected, touching lives across the country and around the world. But at its core, it remained beautifully simple, a testament to the power of love, courage, and the unbreakable bonds that can form between the most unlikely companions. Do you think there are more enhanced animals still out there waiting to be discovered? And what other amazing abilities might they have developed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. 6 months after their arrival at Haven Hills, Emma received a phone call that would lead to the most extraordinary chapter of their already incredible journey. Marcus was calling from Washington, D.C., where he had been working with a congressional committee investigating the full scope of the illegal research network. "Emma, you need to see this," Marcus said, his voice tight with excitement and concern. "We've found something in Dr. Crenshaw's files that changes everything we thought we knew about the enhancement program." The discovery Marcus had made was staggering in its implications. Hidden within encrypted files recovered from the North Lake facility was evidence of a prototype program that went far beyond the neural enhancement procedures performed on Atlas and the other dogs. "They call it Project Mind Bridge," Marcus explained during a secure video call that included Dr. Winters and Agent Chen. It wasn't just about enhancing animal abilities. It was about creating a permanent psychic network between enhanced animals and human handlers. Dr. Winters leaned forward with interest. What kind of network? According to these files, they were developing technology that would allow multiple enhanced animals to share consciousness with each other and with human operators, Marcus continued. Imagine a pack of psychic dogs that could coordinate perfectly, sharing sensory information and tactical awareness in real time. The implications were both fascinating and terrifying. Such technology could revolutionize everything from search and rescue operations to military tactics, but in the wrong hands, it could also create unprecedented opportunities for surveillance and control. "The most important part is that they succeeded," Marcus added grimly. "At least partially. There's a facility in the mountains of Colorado where they were conducting the final phase of testing. And according to the intelligence we've gathered, some of the test subjects are still there." Agent Chen spoke up from her location at FBI headquarters. "We've been monitoring the Colorado site for weeks, but it's heavily fortified and isolated. The terrain makes traditional assault approaches extremely difficult." "What does this have to do with us?" Emma asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Atlas might be the key to reaching them," Dr. Winters said softly. "If these animals are part of a psychic network, and if Atlas's abilities are compatible with their enhancement protocols, he might be able to establish contact from a distance." The idea was both incredible and dangerous. They were asking Atlas to potentially reconnect with the very technology that had traumatized him, reaching out across hundreds of miles to animals who might still be trapped in the nightmare he had escaped. Kai had been listening to the conversation with the intense focus he showed whenever Atlas's well-being was involved. Now, he looked up at his mother with those serious eyes that seemed far too old for his 6-year-old face. "Atlas wants to help them," Kai said simply. "He can feel them sometimes when he's sleeping. They're scared and they want to come home." Emma felt her heart break at the thought of her son and Atlas voluntarily re-entering the dark world they had fought so hard to escape. But she also understood that this might be the only chance to rescue animals who were still suffering in ways that Atlas had experienced firsthand. Dr. Winters had been studying the technical specifications Marcus had uncovered, her scientific mind racing through the possibilities. The enhancement procedures described here are more advanced than anything we've seen, she reported, but they're also more invasive and potentially dangerous. These animals have been subjected to experimental surgeries that could have unpredictable effects. What kind of effects? Emma asked. Enhanced sensory perception, increased cognitive abilities, and potentially unstable psychic connections. Dr. Winters explained. Some of the test subjects might be experiencing constant telepathic input from multiple sources. It could be driving them insane. The urgency of the situation became clear as Marcus shared more details from the recovered files. The Colorado facility was scheduled for decommissioning within 2 weeks, which likely meant that the remaining test subjects would be eliminated to destroy evidence of the program. We have a narrow window to act, Agent Chen explained, but the remote location and security measures make this operation extremely challenging. We need an advantage that traditional law enforcement can't provide. That advantage would have to come from Atlas and his unique abilities. Working with Dr. Winters and her research team, they began developing a plan that would use the psychic network technology against itself. If Atlas can establish contact with the animals at the Colorado facility, he might be able to coordinate their escape, Dr. Winters theorized. Enhanced animals working together could overcome security measures that would stop normal dogs. The preparation for this unprecedented mission took days of careful planning and testing. Atlas underwent extensive medical examinations to ensure he was strong enough for the psychic strain of long-distance communication. Kai practiced focusing his connection with Atlas, learning to act as an amplifier for the dog's telepathic abilities. The bond between Kai and Atlas is stronger than anything we've documented, Dr. Winters observed as they conducted test sessions. Together, they might be able to reach across distances that would be impossible for either of them alone. But the tests also revealed concerning information about the animals still trapped in Colorado. Through his tentative psychic contact, Atlas was able to sense their condition, and what he communicated through Kai painted a disturbing picture. There are 12 dogs left, Kai reported after one particularly intense session, but some of them aren't thinking right anymore. The machines in their heads are making them confused and angry. Dr. Winters nodded grimly. That's consistent with what we'd expect from unstable neural implants. The longer they remain active, the more likely they are to cause permanent psychological damage. The rescue mission that emerged from their planning was unlike anything law enforcement had ever attempted. Atlas and Kai would establish psychic contact with the trapped animals from a mobile command center positioned as close to the Colorado facility as possible. They would guide the enhanced dogs through a coordinated escape that would coincide with a federal raid on the installation. It's never been done before, Agent Chen admitted as they finalized the operational details. We're essentially using telepathic communication to coordinate a jailbreak. If this works, it will rewrite the book on special operations. Emma found herself once again packing for a journey into the unknown, but this time the stakes felt even higher. They weren't just risking their own safety. They were attempting to save animals whose enhanced abilities made them both valuable and dangerous. The drive to Colorado took them through some of the most beautiful and isolated terrain in the country. Snow-capped peaks rose on all sides as they climbed into the mountains, following roads that seemed to lead away from civilization itself. Atlas became increasingly agitated as they approached the general area of the secret facility. Even from dozens of miles away, he seemed to sense the presence of the trapped animals and the technology that had once been used to control him. He says they're calling for help, Kai reported, his small hand resting on Atlas's head as they established their psychic connection. But their calls are all mixed up, like radio stations playing at the same time. Dr. Winters monitored Atlas's vital signs as the psychic contact strengthened, watching for signs of dangerous strain. His heart rate is elevated, but stable, she reported to Agent Chen over their secure communication link. The connection is holding. The Federal Command Center had been established in a camouflage position overlooking the valley where the Colorado facility was hidden. Through high-powered telescopes and electronic surveillance, they could see the concrete structure built into the mountainside, its entrance nearly invisible from a distance. Thermal imaging shows at least 15 human heat signatures inside, Agent Chen reported. And we're detecting some kind of electromagnetic interference that's consistent with the neural enhancement technology. As they prepared for the coordinated rescue operation, Kai's connection with Atlas deepened to levels that concerned everyone watching. The boy's eyes took on a distant quality, as if he was seeing through multiple sets of enhanced senses simultaneously. "I can see what they see," Kai whispered, his voice taking on an otherworldly quality. The small rooms, the bright lights, the people in white coats. But some of the dogs are fighting back now. They're getting angry. Through Atlas, Kai was experiencing the collective consciousness of 12 enhanced animals who had been driven to the edge of madness by their captivity. The psychic network that was supposed to make them into perfect weapons had instead created a powder keg of animal rage and desperation. "We need to move fast, Doctor," Winters warned. "This level of psychic strain can't be sustained indefinitely without risking permanent damage to both Kai and Atlas." The rescue operation began at dawn, with Atlas and Kai guiding the trapped animals through the facility's security systems while federal agents prepared for their assault. The enhanced dogs moved with supernatural coordination, their shared consciousness allowing them to act as a single unit despite being physically separated. "They're at the outer perimeter," Agent Chen reported as her tactical team monitored the situation. "The animals have somehow disabled the electronic locks on their containment units." But the escape wasn't going as smoothly as planned. Some of the enhanced dogs were too psychologically damaged to follow complex instructions, while others had become aggressive toward any human presence, including their rescuers. "Atlas says 3 of them are too sick to move," Kai reported, tears streaming down his face as he experienced their pain secondhand. "The machines hurt their brains too much." Dr. Winters made a difficult decision that spoke to both her medical training and her compassion. "We'll have to leave them for the medical team to handle," she said quietly. "Our priority has to be the animals who can still be saved." The breakthrough came when Atlas managed to establish direct psychic contact with the pack leader among the trapped dogs, a German shepherd named Titan, who had retained enough of his sanity to coordinate the others. Through the psychic link, Atlas shared his own memories of escape and recovery, showing Titan that freedom was possible and that humans existed who could be trusted. The effect was immediate and dramatic. "They're moving," Agent Chen announced as her team watched the thermal imaging displays. "All 9 remaining animals are heading for the main exit in perfect formation." But the facility's security team had realized what was happening and was moving to intercept the escaping animals. The confrontation that followed would test every aspect of the enhanced dog's abilities and the strength of their psychic connection. "The guards have tranquilizer weapons," Agent Chen reported grimly. "If they sedate the animals before we can reach them, this whole operation fails." That's when Kai did something that amazed everyone watching. Channeling his connection with Atlas, he somehow extended his influence to all 9 of the escaping dogs, coordinating their movements with precision that no human commander could have achieved. "Left corridor, avoid the guards," he whispered, his voice carrying across the miles through the psychic network. 2 more turns, then the outside door. The enhanced dogs moved like ghosts through the facility, their improved senses allowing them to avoid human detection, while their shared consciousness kept them perfectly coordinated. It was the very capability the illegal researchers had hoped to create, but turned against their own security systems. "They're out," Agent Chen announced, as the thermal imaging showed 9 canine figures emerging from the facility into the mountain wilderness. "All surviving animals have successfully escaped containment." But the mission wasn't over yet. The enhanced dogs were free from their prison, but they were also hundreds of miles from safety in terrain that could be just as deadly as their captors. Through Atlas and Kai, the rescue team had to guide them to designated pickup points where medical teams were waiting. "The psychic connection is holding, Doctor," Winters reported, monitoring both Atlas and Kai for signs of dangerous exhaustion. "But we're pushing the limits of what their minds can handle." The next 6 hours were a marathon of psychic endurance as Atlas and Kai maintained contact with the escaping animals across vast distances. The enhanced dogs had to navigate mountain terrain, avoid search parties, and reach extraction points where federal agents were waiting with veterinary transport vehicles. 3 more miles, Kai whispered, his young face pale with exhaustion, but his determination unwavering. Atlas says they can smell the safe people now. One by one, the rescued animals reached their pickup points and were loaded into specially equipped vehicles for transport to Haven Hills. Each successful extraction was a victory, but the psychic strain on Kai and Atlas was becoming increasingly dangerous. "We need to break the connection, Doctor," Winters warned as Atlas began showing signs of severe mental fatigue. "Much more of this, and we risk permanent damage to his enhanced abilities." But there was one more animal still making his way through the mountains, Titan, the pack leader who had coordinated the escape. He had stayed behind to ensure the others reached safety, and now he was alone in hostile territory with search teams closing in. "We can't leave him," Kai said weakly, his connection with Atlas wavering but still intact. "He saved all the others." The final extraction was the most dangerous of all. Titan was trapped on a mountainside with nowhere to run, surrounded by armed guards who had orders to recapture him at all costs. The only escape route was a treacherous cliff face that would challenge even an enhanced dog's abilities. Through their psychic link, Atlas shared his own memories of the desperate escape from the rising river, showing Titan that impossible situations could be overcome with courage and determination. The connection between the 2 enhanced dogs transcended their physical separation, creating a bond of shared experience and mutual support. "He's climbing," Agent Chen reported in amazement as her team watched through telescopic surveillance. "That dog is actually scaling a vertical rock face." Titan's enhanced abilities had given him not just increased intelligence and psychic powers, but also improved physical capabilities that allowed him to perform feats that would be impossible for a normal animal. The escape down the cliff face was a testament to both his enhancements and his determination to reach freedom. "Got him," came the radio call from the extraction team as Titan finally reached safety. "Last package is secure and en route to medical." The successful rescue of 9 enhanced animals from the Colorado facility marked the end of Project Mindbridge and the final chapter in the illegal research network that had caused so much suffering. But for Kai and Atlas, it was also the culmination of their own journey from victims to heroes. "You did it," Emma whispered to her son as he finally allowed the psychic connection to fade. "You saved them all." Kai looked up at his mother with eyes that held both exhaustion and profound satisfaction. "Atlas and I saved them," he corrected gently. "We're a team." The aftermath of the Colorado rescue brought international attention to the work being done at Haven Hills. The successful use of psychic communication to coordinate a complex rescue operation opened new possibilities for both animal welfare and human-animal cooperation. Dr. Winters found herself at the center of a new field of study that combined veterinary medicine, psychology, and what could only be called psychic research. Universities and research institutions around the world wanted to understand how the enhancement technology could be used ethically to help rather than exploit animals. "We're not trying to create weapons or tools," Dr. Winters explained to a congressional committee investigating the illegal research programs. "We're trying to understand consciousness itself and how different species can communicate and cooperate." The 9 rescued dogs from Colorado joined Atlas at Haven Hills, where they began the long process of healing from their trauma while contributing to legitimate research into psychic phenomena. Some, like Titan, recovered fully and became partners in therapeutic programs. Others required ongoing medical care for the damage done by unstable neural implants. But all of them benefited from the compassionate environment that Dr. Winters had created and the healing influence of Kai's unique abilities. The boy who had started this journey as a quiet, withdrawn child had become a bridge between human and animal consciousness, helping damaged animals find peace while advancing scientific understanding. Marcus's work had led to policy changes at the highest levels of government, establishing new oversight mechanisms for animal research and creating legal protections for enhanced animals. The days of secret facilities and unauthorized experiments were ending, replaced by transparent research programs focused on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. The real legacy of Atlas's rescue isn't the technology or the research, Marcus reflected during one of his visits to Haven Hills. It's the proof that cooperation is more powerful than control, and that compassion can overcome even the most sophisticated attempts at exploitation. As Emma watched her son playing with Atlas and the other rescued animals in the Haven Hills gardens, she marveled at how much their lives had changed. The quiet morning walk by the river that had started everything felt like it had happened in another lifetime, though it had been less than 2 years ago. Kai had grown from a withdrawn 5-year-old into a confident 7-year-old who spoke regularly at conferences about animal welfare and psychic research. His abilities had developed far beyond what anyone had thought possible, but he remained fundamentally the same gentle, empathetic child who had refused to abandon a dying dog by a muddy riverbank. Atlas had transformed as well, from a traumatized test subject into a therapy animal whose work helped both humans and animals heal from various forms of trauma. His enhanced abilities made him uniquely qualified to understand and address psychological wounds that traditional therapy couldn't reach. But perhaps the most important transformation was in the relationship between humans and animals that their story had inspired. Around the world, people were beginning to recognize that animals were not just resources to be used, but conscious beings deserving of respect and protection. "Look at them," Dr. Martinez said, as she joined Emma in watching the children and animals play together. "They're not just coexisting, they're truly communicating. This is what the future of human-animal relationships could look like." The evening sun cast long shadows across the Haven Hills campus as families gathered for the weekly community dinner. Enhanced animals sat beside their human partners, sharing food and conversation in ways that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Kai and Atlas occupied their usual spot at the center of the gathering, the boy's hand resting gently on the dog's head as they shared the kind of wordless communication that had become their trademark. Around them, other children with psychic abilities worked with their own animal partners, creating a community unlike anywhere else in the world. "What's the most important thing you've learned?" a visiting reporter asked Kai during an interview that would be broadcast around the world. Kai considered the question with the seriousness he brought to all important matters. "Animals and people aren't so different," he said finally. "We all want to be safe and loved and useful. When you understand that, everything else becomes easy." The simple wisdom of a 7-year-old had captured the essence of everything they had accomplished. The illegal research programs had failed because they tried to impose control through fear and technology. But the work at Haven Hills succeeded because it was based on mutual respect and genuine communication. As the community dinner concluded and families began returning to their homes, Emma felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this place. The rescue of a single dog from a flooded riverbank had evolved into something much larger, a movement that was changing how humans and animals related to each other. "Do you ever regret how our lives changed?" she asked Kai as they walked back to their house, with Atlas padding quietly beside them. Kai looked up at his mother with surprise. "Why would I regret it? We helped Atlas, and he helped us help others. That's what families do." The boy's matter-of-fact acceptance of their extraordinary circumstances reminded Emma that some of the most profound truths were also the simplest ones. They had become a family through shared danger and mutual support, and their bond had grown stronger through each challenge they faced together. That night, as Emma tucked Kai into bed with Atlas curled up beside him, she reflected on the miracle of their transformation. A struggling single mother had become a respected advocate for animal welfare. A withdrawn child had become a bridge between species, and a traumatized laboratory dog had become a healer whose work touched lives around the world. But at its heart, their story remained beautifully simple, a testament to the power of love, courage, and the unbreakable bonds that can form between the most unlikely companions. The cry for help that had echoed across a muddy riverbank had become a call to action that was still inspiring people to choose compassion over indifference, understanding over fear. As Kai drifted off to sleep with his hand resting on Atlas's head, Emma knew that their journey was far from over. There were still animals to be rescued, research to be conducted, and barriers to be broken down between human and animal consciousness. But whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. A boy, his mother, and a remarkable dog, whose rescue had started a revolution in how the world understood the bonds between all living beings. If you found this incredible story of courage, love, and the amazing bond between humans and animals as moving, as we did, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below telling us which part touched your heart the most. Give this video a thumbs up if it inspired you, share it with someone who loves animals as much as you do, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing true stories that will restore your faith in the power of compassion and the unbreakable bonds that connect us all.